Welcome all members of council and gallery to our council meeting for Monday, June 25th. Just a quick reminder to all members of the public that all cell phones, pagers, and/or PDAs to be turned off. Additionally, for your information, please be advised that we are audio-video recording this meeting for your viewing pleasure at home. Members of council, if we could rise for the singing of O Canada, remain standing for the opening petition by Councillor Bylsma. And I would ask everyone to join me in a minute of silence in honor of Mr. Gerald Fuhr, former Alderman of Ward 2 for the Township of West Lincoln, who had recently passed away. Thank you. Councillor Bylsma.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, a true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We gather together to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. Amen.
Please remain standing for a minute of silence for Alderman Gerald Fuhr. Thank you. I apologize. I should have said former Alderman Gerald Fuhr in my remarks there. Well, welcome everyone. Councillors, is there any change in order of items on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest? I'm going to read something out, Councillor Bell, and I think that's why you have your hand up. Although it was not noted as part of this evening's agenda, Councillor Bell had declared a conflict of interest, pecuniary interest, at the May 28, 2018 council meeting with respect to the closed session item that was discussed, specifically a legal matter pertaining to the Phelps Homes appeal to the OMB to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw, as he lived within a radius of 120 meters of the proposed building lot. Due to Councillor Bell's conflict, the closed session minutes from the May 28, 2018 council meeting will be segregated from the open session minutes and voted on separately, for which Councillor Bell will not vote on due to his conflict. Councillor Bell, is that what you wish to say?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Joyner.
Thank you. Is there any other members of council that have any pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Seeing none, Madam Clerk. Okay, we will move on to requests to address items on the agenda. Is there any members of the public here tonight who wish to address items on tonight's agenda? Seeing none. Thank you, everyone. An item that is included under the other business or communications or which appointments action of the agenda and relates to a matter, and that's what we just did. I'm sorry for that. We'll move on to appointments presentations. There are no appointments presentations. We'll now move on to confirmation of minutes. Council minutes regular for May 28, 2018. As I stated earlier, due to Councillor Bell's conflict as contained in the closed session portion of the May 28, 2008 council minutes, the approval of the May 28, 2018 closed session minutes have been segregated from the approval of the open session minutes. Therefore, we will first approve the open session minutes. Councillor Bell, you have that resolution for the open session minutes, please.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Goodan, that the minutes of the open session portion of May 28, 2018 regular council meeting be accepted.
Thank you, councillors. You've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Ganan. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Madam Clerk. Now that we have approved the open session minutes of the May 28, 2018 council, we now have to approve the confidential minutes from the May 28, 2018 council meeting. Councillor Chichuk, you have that resolution, please.
I do, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trombetta that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of May 28th regular council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from the public disclosure in accordance with exemption provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and that will be May 28th, 2018.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Chichuk and seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. And please note that Councillor Bell did not participate in that vote. We'll move on to public meetings under the Planning Act for June 11, 2018 minutes. Councillor Balsama, you have that resolution, please, sir.
Sir. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell that the minutes of the public meeting held on June 11, 2018 under Section 17 and 34 of the Planning Act with respect to A, official plan amendment, Town of West Lincoln, proposed amendment to existing surplus farm residence consent policies, file number 1701-001-18. B, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, Township of West Lincoln, maximum height increase, file number 1701-002-18 and 1601-018-18. C, zoning bylaw amendment, Mark and Effie Dockstader, file number 1601-10-18. D, zoning bylaw amendment, AT Realty Inc., file number 1601-13-18. E, zoning bylaw amendment, Andre LeBlanc, Country Buds, federally licensed medical marijuana facility, file number 1601-14-18 be accepted.
Thank you. Councillors, we've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Balsama, second by Councillor Bell. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we'll move on to communications. There are no communications for tonight. Next on the agenda is Mayor's Remarks. Here are my Mayor's Remarks for the month of June 2018. It is with profound sadness that I report on the passing of former Township of West Lincoln Alderman of Ward 2, Mr. Gerald Fear. Alderman Gerald Fear passed away June 17th at Lookout Ridge in Fond Hill. Gerald was in his 94th year and was very recently deceased by his loving wife of 71 years, Shirley Fear. Shirley passed away on June 11th, so just eight days previous. Gerald Fear was a Township of West Lincoln Alderman for 9 years, 4 terms in total, 3 two-year terms when we used to have 2-year terms, 1977-78, 1979-80, 1981-82, and for a 1 3-year term, 1983, 84, and 85. Gerald was a well-respected farmer and played an integral part in the Niagara farming community. He was awarded a Master Breeder Shield by Holstein Canada. He served on various agricultural boards and committees. He led 4-H clubs for more than 15 years. And while Gerald was alderman, he served as a board of director on the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. And lastly, Mr. Fear received the Ontario Bicentennial Certificate of Merit, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the North Niagara Federation of Agriculture, and the West Lincoln Citizen of the Year Award. Gerald and Shirley Fear will be missed by a lot of West Lincoln residents, but they are together now in farm heaven. Godspeed to Gerald and Shirley Fear. Rest in peace. This past Saturday afternoon, I was honored to make a special presentation to Legion Villa 2 in honor of their 25th anniversary. On November 1st, 1992, tenants moved into Villa 2, and as we all know, Legion Villa 2 provides affordable housing for seniors. Residents are able to enjoy independent community living with life enrichment activities and the opportunity to enjoy a rich social life while remaining in their own community. The planned activities give the residents a sense of community and friendships, allowing social connections to be made with people who share their same interests and their same experiences. Legion Villa has always strived to be a part of the West Lincoln community through many avenues. It is through the hard work and dedication of staff and volunteers that our township maintains the status of a close-knit community influenced by our agricultural heritage. We are privileged and honored to have our seniors remain in our community in order to glean their vast knowledge and wisdom to support West Lincoln to achieve a more age-friendly community. Congratulations, Legion Villa 2, on your 25th anniversary. And last but not least, I would also like to remind people that this coming Sunday, which is Canada Day, July 1st, we are having a happening in the park. It starts at 5 p.m. and runs to approximately 10:30, quarter to 11. It is out at the LeisurePlex property. Starting at 5 o'clock, we've got family entertainment, which consists of hands-on exotics, country chic pony rides, Niagara inflatables, bouncy castles, Canada tattoos, and we have a magic show that starts at 6 p.m. put on by Mr. Rick Rossini Magic Show. And then at 7:15, our main concert featuring the band The Practically Hip starts to perform. We want to remind people that parking will be at a premium at the LeisurePlex, so we have provided 3 locations. They are the Greek Hall, the Turkstra Lumber, and the Village Square Plaza. And as I said, they will run from 4:30 until approximately 11 p.m. on Sunday, July 1st. Okay, again, I would like to thank all of our community corporate sponsors. In the Platinum department, we have Robbins Electric. In the Gold department, we have Smithville Home Hardware. And our silver sponsors are V&R Recycling, McIntyre Electric, and Merritt Funeral Home. Those are my remarks for the month of June. Thank you, and I hope to see everyone out at our Canada Day festivities on Sunday, July 1st. We'll move on to report of committee. 10A is our Planning, Building, Environmental Committee, June 11, 2018 minutes. Confidential minutes are under separate cover. Councillor Chichuk, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trombetta that the minutes of the open session portion of the June 11th, 2018 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and that the recommendations contained therein be approved. And that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the June 11th, 2018 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you. Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Chichuk and seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Is there any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Item 10B, Administration, Finance, and Fire Committee, June 18, 2018 minutes. Confidential minutes are under separate cover. Councillor Bell, you have that resolution, please.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Michael C. Rayner, that the minutes of the open session portion of the Administration, Finance, Fire Committee meeting held on June 18, 2018 be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exceptions of, and there's no items, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of June 18, 2018 Administration, Finance, Fire, and Committee meeting be accepted, and that all minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exceptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Bell, and I want to thank you, Councillor Bell, for letting us know that Councillor Rayner's middle name is Clarence. Seeing no questions or comments, am I close, Councillor?
No, it's charming, but that's close.
How about Coyote?
Questions or comments? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Ten C, Public Works Recreation Arena Committee, June 18, 2018 minutes. Confidential minutes are under separate cover. Councilor Trombetta, you have that resolution, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rayner that the minutes of the open session portion of the Public Works Recreation Arena Committee meeting held on June 18th be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the June 18, 2018 Public Works Recreation Arena Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from the public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, councilors. The resolution is moved by Councilor Trombetta and seconded by Councilor Rayner. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. We will move on to 13A, which is under Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, and CAO, Mrs. Bev Hendry. This is about climate change staff grants, Federation of Canadian Municipalities for Climate Innovation Program application. Now, prior to proceeding with 13A, I would like to note that there was an error in the original agenda that was posted on Friday, which noted that item 13A as being under the Director of Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Brett Julian, and the CAO, Bev Hendry. This should have read the Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Brian Treble, and the CAO, Bev Hendry. We will turn this over now to Ms. Hendry, please.
Thank you very much. So this resolution or this other business has just come on quite recently, and as a result of learning about an opportunity from the FCM's municipalities for climate innovation programs, and there's one particularly that is in place to assist with funding an additional or a new or existing position that would deal with energy reporting. And the application date is June 29th, and through the process, we have to have a council resolution in support of this. So we apologize for the short notice for it. It's a grant program, so it's not a 100% guarantee, but what the items that we think that a new position that could be created for 2 years at up to 80% of the salary grant. The grant would be in equal to 80% of up to 80% of a salary of $125,000 over the 2 years. And there are a couple pieces of business that the township needs to work on, and one in particular is the corporate energy conservation and demand management plan that was approved in 2013, and I think it was for the years 2014 through to 2019, and there's a commitment to update that every 5 years. And that was done by a consulting company, Blue Sky Consulting, when it was first came into place, and there is a requirement to update that on a 5-year basis. So that would be a discrete piece of work that would need to be done in order to continue to meet our obligations under the Ontario Reg. If I can do it quickly. Ontario Regulation 39711 of the Green Energy Act. And then there's also significant work that's going to need to be done as we move forward with our new recreation facility to ensure that we're managing our energy as appropriately as possible. But also, we have a number of community halls that have never had an assessment or have had an audit to deal with energy. So there are a number of pieces of work that are over and above our current staff complement's ability to do that. And we think that it would be worthwhile for the township to make application to have access to that grant funding through FCM.
Okay, thank you, Madam CAO. Questions or comments? I see Councillor Bosma, Councillor Rayner.
Mine's more of a point of order. Shouldn't we move this and second it and then we can discuss it?
Yeah, and that's why I believe that Councillor Ganand that has the resolution prior to opening up for discussion, and that's probably what I should have done first. So Councillor Gannon, can you please read out the resolution so we can put this on the table?
I do, but having listened to the CAO, I'd just like to say I took an extra 0 off the, you probably saw that, Madam Clerk. Okay, so moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of West Lincoln support the submission of a climate change staff grant application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities under the Municipalities for Climate Innovation Program, which provides funding to pay up to 80% of the salary to a maximum of $125,000 over a 24-month period for one new or existing employee who will implement specific municipal initiatives focused on the GHF emissions reduction or climate change adaptation, and that township staff be and is hereby authorized to submit the climate change staff grant application by no later than June 29th, 2018, being the deadline date for the submission.
Thank you, councillors. You've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Gannon and seconded by Councillor Bell. Is there any questions or comments? And I will go to you first, Councillor Halsma.
Thank you very much. So I know this is kind of at the early stages. It's just an approval of an application process. I guess I read this, my knee-jerk reaction, and so that's what I'm speaking about right now. Is like, I understand that the grant money comes in, and at some level, it's still funded by taxpayers. And whether it comes from the federal government or provincial government, when we receive grants from the municipality, it's taxpayers. So then I have to question the need in general, whether this is something that I can partake of, as a member of this community, trying to spend money wisely and do the things that are the best interest of the community at large. And I see this as another layer of bureaucracy, to put it simply. I understand that there's going to be some tasks, so that's, I guess, in that sense, legitimate. But the tasks have been performed and can be performed by our own staff. I don't see that we need to spend, so by my calculation, it's still going to cost the municipality in the order of about $15,000 to $30,000 per year to top up the salary increase. I don't know if there's a more accurate number than that, but those are just my rough estimates on the additional 20% that we have to fund. Then, so that kind of forms the first layer. The second layer has more to do with the philosophy of climate change itself, and short of calling myself a climate change denier, because I don't think that exists. I think climate always changes. The overall modus operandi is that climate change is instigated by man-made processes and instigations, and I think that there's a large burden of proof that needs to be made by those involved in climate change to show that still that it's a man-made initiative, and that it's not part of natural phenomenon. And there's a large body of scientists who are very credible, who take that position that it is not anthropogenic, man-made climate change. So that's more of a philosophical approach, and I hold to the position that these things are natural processes, that climate change happens through natural processes, and it is very non-existent or insignificant what man-made or human beings have on the climate. So for those two reasons, I'll be rejecting this resolution when the time comes to vote.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Rayner next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support pretty well most of what Councillor Belsma said, which he agrees with the president of what used to be our allies to the south. question I have for the new CAO, it says one new or existing employee. So does that mean if it's one new, after the 2 years, this individual is on the payroll books for eternity?
Ms. Hendry?
So if it were a new employee, there would be likely a contract based on the 2 years that relates to the grant. And then the organization would look at that and whether or not it needs to be a maintained position, or we will do an assessment of it at that point in time.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of comments I have with regards to this when I looked at it too. I agree with a lot of what Councillor Bylsma said. There are things to look at that we certainly can improve and be better on. The CAO mentioned the new rec center. Well, I would assume that that's being built with the most modern, up-to-date cost-saving ventures and would not need to be reviewed for a heck of a long period of time. And the community centers and stuff, certainly, but once that's all done, then what's this individual going to do? I mean, there are things that need to be done. It's almost like it's cheaper for us to hire a contractor specializing in this field to go look at the various areas and determine what the cost savings are, and the cost savings alone would more than justify the cost of hiring this individual to go do that. And we're not on the lam to the taxpayers after this $125,000 is over for something that once you've got it up to date, what's that person going to do? Wait 20 years for it to get out of date and then put it back up? In the meantime, what are we going to do with this person? It doesn't seem like this is a long-term project that can justify a full-time employee. I can understand if a 2-year contract and then it's over, that seems to be a better investment. But this is kind of correcting things that need to be updated, and once they're corrected, they shouldn't have to be done for a long period of time. So I can't see the long-term fit for this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Chichak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate the positions taken by the previous speakers. What I will say is that this is a Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and that money is being given to them, whether we take it or someone else takes it. It's being given by the federal government. And whether we call it climate change or reduced infrastructure, because the thing that I'm looking at with this particular kind of position is, whatever you want to label it, we have more stranded debt in this province because we had to build electrical facilities and roads and bridges for the peak demand of what it was we thought was going to happen. And we have excess asphalt. In some places, we have lack of bridges. We don't have enough transportation. And we sure do have a lot of electrical debt that was generated because we were thinking that we could just spend. And to me, that's part of climate change. Because regardless of what we're doing, part of the awakening that we had in the energy sector was the fact that we had far too much. Now, you can call climate change and anything else out there the fact that there's, a 50-mile lagoon of plastic out in the Pacific Ocean, and that's terrible for the fish that are forced to eat it or whatever. You can talk about climate change being the fact that the things that man are doing are causing the climate to change, and God's eternal thoughts about how this world will end and begin were his, and no matter what we do, they're inevitable. That's some people's position. But what I think we, as a council, is stewards. I'm sorry to belabor this, Mr. Mayor, but I feel that we were put here to be stewards of what it would benefit our community. So, climate change or teaching children to turn the lights off, I'm sure your grandmother, knowing the ethnicity of her as well as mine, said, turn that light off. You don't need it. And we were all taught to be prudent with the resources given to us by those that were there before us, whether it was water or sewage capacity or electricity. All of that could be part of climate change. This is a 2-year contract, and we won't be saddled with anybody after it, if I understand this correctly. And, part of climate change is to get people to buy into that change. Our new facility will be a Silver Standard LEEDs building, but in fact, there's still electric charging meters because the world is changing that have to be put into that so that electric cars can be charged there. Where are we going to get that money from? And how are we going to afford it? Well, I know staff are working on that. Our old facilities, our air handling equipment is defunct, our septic systems probably leach like a lot of other people's, and there are many other things in our facilities that don't exactly cut the mustard, as they say. And so, to me, if we don't take this, it's not like it won't be spent. And that's not a good reason for taking it. But we have as much need here in West Lincoln to look at things that reduce the footprint of the people here today in making this a better, smarter world. Well, even garbage. Garbage. You know, Niagara Falls is trying to do garbage audits. Well, you know what? Maybe that's something we could be doing, because all of that adds to the impact of change on climate, whatever you want to call it. But I think the best one is stranded debt on electrical costs. So, Mr. Mayor, when the motion gets put forward, I'm sorry for that belabored, pardon me, view that I have. It's no different than my colleagues, but it's just not exactly in the same side. So I will be voting in favor of this. And I commend staff for bringing it forward, at least for us to have the exercise of going through it.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Trouble, would you like to weigh in on this, please?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, really briefly, there's a number of different steps that this position would need to take in terms of doing some research, preparing a new plan, as the current CIO had identified, since the existing one is expired, and also working on a number of different implementation pieces. So once you identify the recommendations, this plan talks about taking the implementation steps as well. So you don't prepare the plan, put it on the shelf. This resource actually starts to figure out how you make the efficiency moves that are recommended so that we're more efficient and streamlined going forward. So that's partly why staff thought it was worthwhile to make the application. We may never get it, but we certainly won't get it if we don't try.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Bev, would you like to respond to just that, or can I go to Councillor Bell first?
Yeah, Councillor Bell, please.
So, just a quick comment. I've heard from fellow councillors, and climate change is here, and I believe climate change is created by men and women. We created the problem. We recognize we've created this problem. And here's an opportunity for us to try to put something in place to try to correct some of the problems that we've created. So, without getting into long stories, I do support what's happening here. It is a 2-year contract. You know, it's a deal at 80%. They're paying 80%, costing us money. And we have an opportunity to try to do something, so I will support it.
Okay, thank you.
Bev, CAO?
Thank you again. The one point I did want to clarify is that this is coming at you very last minute. We just started to put our minds to it last week, where we would never bring this to your attention, but with such a short timeline, but with the application just around the corner, we needed to get the resolution should council choose to do this. But there's, in addition to the other pieces that have been spoken about, staff, if council does approve this, we will be getting together to try to figure out the most appropriate place within the organization. It could be more in the facility side, and where Mr. Treble has been sort of a cheerleader behind this. We aren't too sure specifically where it would land in the corporation. There's also, with our asset management work, we have to start to look at our buildings and do auditing our buildings to know what we need to do to make sure that they're in good stead. And I do believe that that sort of work could be attached to this position as well.
So buildings like our halls and our fire halls and places like that.
Councillor Gannon, please.
Just briefly, I would just like to make a comment about grants. Many people ask us over time, well, has Township applied for a grant for A or for Project B or whatever? And often the answer is no, because we've never had staff in place to be able to research. And writing a grant application is not a simple task. And I just think that the fact that staff has looked at this and has looked at a way to benefit the municipality, then we have to stand behind their respect their knowledge and the work that they're going to put into this grant application, knowing full well that we might not even get it. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other last comments or questions? Okay, so I do have a resolution that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of West Lincoln support the submission of a climate change staff grant application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities under the Municipalities for Climate Innovation Program, which provides funding to pay up to 80% of the salary to a maximum of $125,000 over a 24-month period for one new or existing employee who will implement specific municipal initiatives focused on GHF emissions. Is that GHF or GHG emissions? Because it says in the letter GHG, we have GHF here. Just checking. Just want to make sure, Madam Clerk. Okay, so I'll make that change now. GHG. GHG emissions reduction or climate change adaptation, and that the township staff be and is hereby authorized to submit the climate change staff grant application by no later than June 29, 2018, being the deadline date for the submission. Seeing no more comments or questions, please raise your hands high. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we'll move on to members of council remarks. We'll start on my left, your right, Councillor Rayner.
I have a couple, Mr. Mayor. I hope they're appropriate. Number one is a shock that came to me a couple days ago when I did a walk down the road from me. Caister Centre has a major infestation of gypsy moths. They're back.
Again.
And they're back bad. There are some major over 100-year-old oak trees that are really, really stripped. And we had this problem a number of years ago,
Yeah, I
as you
remember.
recall. We didn't get saved by the government. We got saved because there was a cold frost one morning, and that's what killed off the gypsy moth before it got out of the larva stage. They're all over the trees. They're about 1.5 to 2 inches long, climbing up and down the trees. You can see them by the gazillion. I don't know if there's anything we can do. There used to be a spray program. Hamilton right now is in the process of spraying, I believe. Ancaster and Dundas are on the spray list right now. I was surprised when I heard it because we really haven't had it for a number of years out. And Caister really was bad. In 1991, it wiped out most of the white oak. And it was a terrible thing. So they're back again. And is there anything we can do to get a hold of these people and find out what the cost could be? Because to spray it now would probably save these trees, if not reduce the numbers to the point where they're not going to be a problem down the road because they're just starting up. But they have really, really grabbed onto a number of oak trees in the area, and they're cleaning them right up. So they're going to get bad, and they're going to get bad fast because they spread quickly. Is there anything we can do?
So I think, since you brought it up, I think we can absolutely pass on staff direction to have a look. Can we, investigate, reach out to the different ministries and see what our neighbors are doing, what kind of spraying they're doing, and maybe we can piggyback on that initiative too as well.
Mr. Mayor, wasn't there a Mr. Robinson or something that did the tree? Paul Robertson, right? He was involved in that a lot and knew a lot about it.
Remember that, Brian?
That may be
Yes.
a contact.
Mr. Mayor, I do recall that, and that's exactly who I was thinking I'd reach out to find out what was going on.
Yeah, the sooner we can get on that, the better, because these trees are, I would say, at least 2/3 cleaned
Okay.
at this point, and it's that bad. There won't be nothing left of the leaves in another month, probably. They can come back from that once, but they can't come back from that twice. So that's the problem. The other thing I've got, and I think it's a time to speak about it. It has really bothered me a lot since the planning meeting with regards to the marijuana issue in Caisterville. I can't speak strongly enough how proud I am of the residents of Caisterville and how Mr. LeBlanc was considerate and respectful. But what I'm relating this to, Mr. Mayor, is the same sort of scenario that existed with the turbines, where the people were coming here, they were in shock what was going on, they were frustrated, the government seemed not to be listening, they were actually passing laws that prevented anything from being done. The Liberal government of Ontario did that. Now we've got a Prime Minister who seems to love drugs And he just pushed it a couple days ago, that he's made it effective October the 17th, I believe. It's going to be legalized. But it is causing a tremendous amount of hardship for the people in the rural areas who end up, as we've experienced, either these illegal growers or these producers, and they are really affected. The turbine people, there was a lot of potential, what they felt would be existing because of the turbines, but the smell is just unbelievable. There's a big operation on Highway 20 going to Pelham just before you get to AEV Crosley, and the people that did the presentation said they called Health Canada, and Health Canada ignored them. So it's almost like the same situation.
That's not exactly what they said, Councillor.
What was it
They
then?
said they called Health Canada, and Health Canada said you need to call your municipality because it falls under bylaws, and that falls under the smell bylaw. So what their point was, if I can just,
Go ahead.
what they said is that when you call Health Canada says call your municipality, and when you call your municipality, they say call Health Canada. So carry on.
So what it is, it's a frustrating circle that the people who are involved and are affected are really not getting any answers from anybody, any help, any support. It's almost rammed down, but not quite as bad as the turbines, because we do have the zoning bylaws and a few other things where we have a little bit of power. But we have a prime minister who seems to be bent to hell to have this come down on everybody, and the ramifications for the people who live in the country are very serious. And it's going to get worse for us. It's consumed a lot of our time. It's frustrated a lot of people in our township, not only here, but Port Davidson Road and other areas. And it's going to continue. There's another one at Dokimi's on Highway 20 that we dealt with. It's continuing. Is there anything we can do as a municipality to voice our opinion back to the federal government to say, that's fine, Mr. Prime Minister, what you're doing, but the effects of the people in the country is not acceptable to us, and there has to be an alternative means, either import it, buy it from another country, but don't stick it to the people in the country here and destroy their enjoyment of the country because you wanted to have pot for everybody. I mean, somehow can we speak on behalf, because this to me is just the turbines, except it's marijuana. It's not the provincial, it's the federal. But it's exactly the same way. It's being rammed down. They don't care about the people that are affected. They just want to pass their legislation because they got a hard on to get it done. And is there anything we can do to help to prevent this, or at least make them aware that we're not the only ones? I mean, there's many other municipalities that are complaining also. Somebody has to try to say, enough's enough. It's not acceptable.
I think you should apologize for that use of that word, Councillor, real quickly, if you could.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even know I said that.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a mistake. But you can see I got a passion for this, and I just see this turbine thing coming all over again.
We did send a letter, Councillor. I don't remember exactly what it said right now, but if staff could please hunt up that letter and send it out again, distribute it to all members of council, again, before the next planning committee meeting, and then we'll think about then how we want to adjust the letter accordingly for the second letter. We have sent a letter from the township. It does talk about people in the rural community and the hardship that it brings having these types of facilities next to them. I know it said that much. Mr. Treble, do you have it there quite quickly in front of you?
Mr. Mayor, no, I don't have it in
Okay.
front of me, but you're bang on with what you've said so far.
Okay. And then we've also sent one too as well from the regional municipality of Niagara too, from Public Health too as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is a coincidence, but the problem started with the turbines with the Liberal government, and look what happened to them in the last election. And this now is coming down from the federal level, from the Liberal government. I don't know if this is a Liberal thing that they like to do these things, but it seems like both provincially and federally, they've really caused a lot of hardship for the people in the rural areas of this province.
I would suggest, Councillor, that the Prime Minister of Canada, before he was elected, told you what he was going to do. And he was still elected. So that doesn't make it right, but he's been very transparent in the road that he wants to go down. We still need to clean it up, though.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He's been transparent, but all the work that needs to be done so that it doesn't affect the people who live in the area has not been done. They've gone ahead without it, and the people have suffered because of it. So the optimism that it's going to be corrected and it's going to be perfect in the future, we don't have to worry about it, isn't very comfortable at this time. Especially, as you say, if you call Health Canada the province, it's a circular thing with municipalities, and nobody seems to give you a straight answer. If it's that frustrating, then how do we know down the road that these systems are going to be properly designed so that the future ones that are going to go up are not going to be an issue? But right now, nobody has any confidence because what's come so far has been a disaster, and it's affected a lot of people. This stuff stinks, and it goes for kilometers in all directions. People don't have a life anymore. I just feel bad because to me it's this turbine thing all over again, except with a different subject matter. And are we ever going to get away from this stuff and just move on in our lives so that we don't bother other people and try to do productive things? We always seem to have something that really affects a lot of people in a negative way, either provincially or federally.
Well, I think we might have to open up the Agricultural Farm Act too as well again, because we do have manure that's spread on the field and stays out there for.
And it's dished in within 48 hours. And it's
True,
done.
it is. It's supposed to be, but it still has a lingering smell in some cases for many, many weeks. So there's many ways to look at this because it is an agricultural problem. So don't
just had
disagree
the
with you. I hear you. Let's get that letter to come back out again, and we can have a
Who
look
can
at
I
it
go
again.
to, Mr. Mayor? I mean,
We sent it to everybody last time. We sent it to the Minister of Health federal, Minister of Health provincially, obviously the Premier, the Prime Ministers. We sent it to AMO, to Roma, to FCM. We've sent it everywhere.
Okay, has there been any feedback, Mr. Mayor?
Has there been any return letter to us?
From any of the response that you sent to all the different areas?
Madam Clerk, do you recall one? A letter back?
Through you, Mayor Joyner, I believe that we've received no correspondence back, but it was sent through AMO to all the municipalities within Ontario, as well as Health Canada. I'm pulling up the letter, sorry. Yeah, I think to the federal and provincial governments both, but all municipalities as well, and we've received no correspondence in return.
Okay. Senator.
On an administrative basis, because our letter was circulated through AMO, I was reached by another CAO and another municipalities. They're saying we're having this similar sorts of issues and asked for our advice in that regard. And so the message is out there, and similar approaches will be taken. And so it was a good conversation that the letter, I think, brought about.
So that's excellent. So other people are starting to respond, and maybe as a group, a number of municipalities get together, there'll be enough for them to listen.
There, even as I understand, listening to Mayor Augustine of Pelham the other day on 610, that many, many people are calling Health Canada, and that's what needs to happen. And so he has relayed that message out there to his residents, and they're being flooded right now with phone calls at Health Canada to that one particular site that you mentioned off of Highway 20. So there is some action being done. I will tell you this, that I have been inside a medical marijuana facility that is in Hamilton off of number 6 highway, and the walls are about, I'm going to say about 18 inches thick, and there is no smell from this this facility whatsoever. So I think it really depends on the construction of the building and the HVAC, of course, as to how much
Then
smell.
again, it's the regs from the federal government to ensure that the buildings are built to the specifications so that nobody around will be offended by it.
And maybe, just maybe, with all of this pressure on Health Canada, maybe they will change the type of regs that are being put forth as far as it has to do with HVAC and construction of the building.
I'm just concerned, Mr. Mayor, that what we've experienced so far is just the beginning.
Oh, no question.
And you know, we've been very strong, and the people of this township have been very strong to try to stop it. And it was a tremendous credit how well and how deeply they investigated, and all the answers that they had to, and all the questions that they gave. They were really on top of their game, and it was very impressive to see that. But I'd hate to see this happen every couple of months, that we have another area of the township of West Lincoln where we got another 50 people have to do this all over again with the hopes that they can turn this thing down. Surely to goodness we can stop it to the point where it doesn't come anymore, or even to the point where people say, you know, West Lincoln, because I sit on another board and from another municipality says, oh, we welcome them down there. We've got 10 or 12 of them. I said, you can have all ours, I got no problem. So maybe we could make it clear to people out here that West Lincoln really doesn't welcome it, but there are municipalities that love it, so by all means, go down there and have a great time. But not here.
But
Not
that's
in my
not what our,
backyard.
but that's not what our bylaw says, Councilor Rayner. You understand that, right? That's
I
not what
understand.
our bylaw says. Okay,
All right.
okay. Comment to that? Councilor Bell, what would you like to say?
You just stated that you were in one in Hamilton.
Yes.
And the walls were approximately 16, 18 inches thick.
I think so,
And you
yeah.
had no odor at all that you could smell. Question, and we're fortunate to have Mr. Trouble here tonight at council. So I'll ask the question, can we put a bylaw into place that says this is the type of structure that we must have before you can have one in our municipality? And still being true to the gist of our bylaw, saying, yeah, come and you're fine, but these are the standards you have to meet.
Can I just add something to that
Yeah.
point? Is it possible that maybe we go for a tour of this facility too as well?
We-
Maybe we can set that up, Ms. Hendry, too as well. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Trouble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, there is an application coming forward, which I believe is scheduled for September for a public meeting, and they have offered to take us on a tour of a facility somewhere as well. I don't think any details are ironed out there, but there are a couple of possibilities out there. In terms of the structure of a building, I can certainly take that under advisement, as we have not brought back a recommendation report on changes to the bylaw yet. So I'll add that into the hopper before we bring back the recommendation report and see what we can do.
I will say one last thing, Councillor. Very good points. Thank you for bringing them up. And we have been fortunate that we have been able to thwart one, potentially two, facilities here in West Lincoln. I guess I want to ask you and ask all of council is the $365,000 question that if Mr. LeBlanc did not pull out of this project, would we have had the capabilities of stopping him? That is the question.
Yeah,
That's right.
There's a lot involved in that.
I just
we
wanted
cannot speak of
to
right
say
now.
that hypothetically, okay? So,
But that's what I said. That's another credit to the people in that hamlet of Casterville, that there's a gentleman who wanted to do something. Other people did their homework and explained to him why it's not a good idea. He respected it, wanted to live in that community with them in harmony, had other alternatives and ways to go, and he was willing to do something else. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. As Councillor Chichok said that night, it turns out to be a wonderful evening. I mean, we got lucky on that one. But the next one might not be that way.
true enough. Okay. Let's move on if we could. Thank you for those
Thank you.
points, Councillor.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
speaking.
Councillor Trombetta? Okay, Councillor Chichak?
I guess just to acknowledge a couple things in the township that's gone on lately that haven't been mentioned, and that is this past Saturday, there was a, pardon me, a pulled pork dinner at the Fulton Stone Church, which was well attended, and in fact, the food was amazing and enjoyed by all. A couple weeks ago, there was the celebration of the United Church, the Alcoa United Church celebrated its annual anniversary, and that was quite a well-attended event. Certainly brought a lot of people, some hard work putting up the tents and taking them down, but congratulations to the Vaughan family for doing such a good job of putting things together and continuing to celebrate a church that's been in this community for a very long time. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure how well known this is, but just because I get the emails and am a member, I want to congratulate our CAO, Ms. Hendry, on being re-elected to the CAMA board, and the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators is CAMA. So congratulations, and I know you'll put our voice forward, Ms. Henry, and watch those grants.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ganand, please.
Yes, just very briefly, because some members of this council have been taking part in the age-friendly meetings that we have. They have been historically 5 meetings on the first Friday of the month, but for July, we're moving it a week ahead. So it will be the 13th, Friday the 13th. So I just didn't want somebody to show up that first Friday thinking that there should be a meeting. And just by way of information, tomorrow there is a forum for local municipal seniors and age-friendly advisory committee leaders in Niagara at the Welland Wellness Center. And so I'll be taking part in that forum tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we'll learn a lot from the other municipalities about what they've done. So
Very
thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Belsma? Okay, Councillor Bell?
A couple tweets I've seen, something to do with Charter and Kiwanis and, all right.
West Lincoln Kiwanis is continuing growing since the charter night. We've had a few events that we've been able to share with St. Catharines.
Turn your mic on, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So like I say, since the charter night, we've been able to share some events with St. Catharines. As you all know, we've had the duck race. We've done that. That's been good. We're also taking part, we were approached by the fundraising committee of the MERS project, and the West Lincoln Kiwanis has agreed to work with the fundraising committee. We'll be selling seats for the MERS project, and that'll be kicked off on July 1st. And we will be at the Leisureplex Park. Come on out and have a look at the seats. They're very comfortable. They're nice. They're going to be offered to the public, anyone that wishes to buy them. All seats are for sale. We just had a photo op on the Friday. Councillor Gadan was there, and myself, the chair from the fundraising committee, Mr. Julian, and it's just to make everybody aware. So hopefully you come out and have a look at them and take part of the MERS project, and we're looking forward to getting that up and running. There's a few other initiatives that the Kiwanis has taken part in the community, a few more projects that will be coming forward over the next couple of weeks. And we'll keep you informed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for probing.
Seeing no other comments, I just want to make one last comment or one final comment. I want to thank all the graduates. There are graduates from grade 8 and graduates from grade 12 and graduates from all the different schools, the Catholic School Board, the Public School Board, the Christian School Board. We have a lot of college graduates and university graduates, a very, very special time of the year. And if you've ever been in those graduation ceremonies, every year it's 110 degrees in the gymnasium. So I'm for air conditioning in our public schools and Catholic schools and Christian schools, that's for sure. It's only one day, but boy, I lose a few pounds, let me tell you, with the suit on some days. So, but anyway, congratulations to all of the 2018 graduates all across West Lincoln, West Niagara, and the Hamilton Niagara area. Okay, let's move on. Are there any new items of business at this time? I'll see none. We'll move on to bylaws. Councillor Reiner has the bylaw resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and second by Councillor Jason Trombetta, that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2018-55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto. Any rule of this council to the contrary is notwithstanding.
Thank you, councillors. You've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Reiner and second by Councillor Trombetta. Is there any questions or comments? Could I trouble you, Mr. Treble, to talk about a little bit? I find this one here is we should be having a little bit of some recognition for bylaw 2018-57. And that is to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the municipal funding agreement with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for the Main Street Revitalization Initiative and any other supporting documents. It kind of goes into what Councillor Ganan was saying earlier. Our staff does apply for grants every single day. And we throw a lot of mud against the wall, and every once in a while, some of it sticks. And here's a very good news story. Can you tell us about this, please, Mr. Treble?
remind us about this?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is a funding announcement that I believe occurred at Roma, where the Association of Municipalities of Ontario received money from OMAF, I think it was, to support downtown investments in communities. And so we received some $52,000, I believe it was, Mr. Mayor, from that project, which we have matched with $100,000 from the region's PRIP program, Public Realm Improvement Program, that will help us put the Smithville Parkette together over the next 18 months or so. So by the end of 2019, we should have a parkette downtown, which is from this source as well as PRIP and township funds.
Okay, thank you. Very good news story. Thank you, sir. Seeing no more questions or comments? Excuse me. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we will now move into confidential matters. Councilor Trombetta, you have that resolution to go into closed session, please.
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rayner that the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, ACAO, Bev Hendry, personal matters, position of clerk and deputy clerks, applicable closed session exemptions, personal matters about an undiviable individual, including municipal or local board employees, labor relations, or employee negotiations.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councilor Trombetta and seconded by Councilor Rayner. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We are now into closed session.
Night, guys.
I already told you that. You ask me that every week.